That leader who makes catastrophic decisions yet never faces consequences. That system that seems designed to reward the wrong people for all the wrong reasons. It feels maddening, even crazy-making, to watch incompetence flourish while merit struggles. I'm here to tell you you're not crazy. What you're witnessing is a fundamental flaw in how humans organize power, one that has been documented by philosophers, psychologists, and organizational experts for centuries. Today, we're going to name this phenomenon, understand its psychological roots, and equip you with strategies to navigate systems where foolishness thrives while wisdom is ignored. Imagine a world where appearing virtuous is more valuable than being virtuous. This isn't fiction, it's our reality. Nearly 500 years ago, Niccolò Machiavelli observed something profound about power. Perception matters more than reality. In his infamous work, The Prince, he wrote that for rulers, it is not necessary to have all the qualities I mentioned, but it is very necessary to appear to have them. This insight cuts to the heart of why incompetent people so often rise to positions of power. Intelligence and competence can actually be disadvantages in certain power structures. When you're intelligent, you see nuance. You recognize complexity. You understand the limits of your own knowledge. These qualities, valuable for solving problems, become liabilities when convincing others to follow you. What rises to the top is unfounded confidence. The Dunning-Kruger effect, documented by psychologists David Dunning and Justin Kruger, reveals that the least competent people often possess the most inflated views of their abilities. In studies spanning logic, grammar, and humor, those performing in the bottom quartile estimated their skills far above average. They lacked the metacognitive ability to recognize their own incompetence. This psychological blind spot creates a perfect storm in leadership contexts. Truly incompetent individuals genuinely believe they're exceptional, displaying none of the hesitation or humility that accompanies actual expertise. Their unwavering certainty, like a gleaming facade concealing a crumbling structure, becomes mistaken for competence by observers. History provides compelling evidence. George W. Bush's administration made catastrophic decisions regarding the Iraq War partly through what former CIA analyst Kenneth Pollack described as a selective use of intelligence to justify decisions already made. Yet Bush's certainty in public appearances maintained his authority despite mounting evidence of poor judgment. This same psychological mechanism enabled Elizabeth Holmes to convince highly educated Theranos investors and board members of her non-existent technology through absolute confidence projection. Both cases demonstrate how our cognitive biases favor certainty over substance. Our brains create shortcuts that prioritize conviction over nuance. When confronted with complexity, we experience cognitive discomfort, what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. To avoid this discomfort, we gravitate toward leaders offering simple, confident answers, even when those answers defy logic or evidence. We prefer information that is easy to process over information that is accurate but complex. These dynamics manifest in almost every workplace. The employee confidently presenting a half-baked idea receives more praise than the thoughtful colleague, carefully outlining multiple possibilities with appropriate caveats. In political systems, nuanced policy proposals rarely survive against bold, simple claims. Social hierarchies form around those speaking with conviction rather than accuracy. You might recognize these patterns. Perhaps you've witnessed a colleague's rise despite questionable competence. Maybe you've sat in meetings where the loudest voice prevailed over the most informed one. Or possibly you've noticed qualified candidates losing elections to those projecting more confidence. This dynamic exploits our fundamental desire for certainty in an uncertain world. Humans crave cognitive closure, the feeling that we understand what's happening and what will happen next. When facing ambiguity, we experience psychological discomfort we're motivated to resolve, even if that means accepting simplistic explanations. Incompetent leaders intuitively understand this vulnerability. They offer what appears to be a psychological safe harbor amid complexity. Their unearned confidence becomes a beacon drawing in those seeking relief from uncertainty. When someone declares with absolute conviction they have the answer to a complex problem, it triggers a powerful psychological response that can override rational evaluation. This is why incompetent people rise to power. They project unearned confidence that exploits our psychological need for certainty. Their lack of self-doubt becomes their greatest asset in ascending hierarchies, even as it becomes their greatest liability in solving problems once they reach the top. But unearned confidence isn't the only advantage that helps incompetent people secure positions of power. There exists a paradox that few discuss openly. The most capable people are often handicapped by the very thing society claims to value, their moral compass. What if your ethical boundaries are precisely what's keeping you from advancement? We've been taught since childhood that good behavior leads to good outcomes. Work hard, play fair, tell the truth, and you'll be rewarded. Yet in many competitive environments, corporate hierarchies, political systems, even academic institutions, this fundamental equation breaks down. Those willing to bend ethical rules often sprint ahead, while the conscientious remain behind, puzzled by their lack of progress. This moral handicap operates on multiple levels. As Machiavelli recognized centuries ago, individuals unconstrained by ethics access an entirely different strategic playbook. They make false promises, undermine rivals through deception, and exploit people's fears and prejudices. Powerful emotional levers that bypass rational thought. Imagine a boardroom scenario. Jane, the ethical executive, can only promise realistic projections during the annual strategy meeting. Meanwhile, her colleague Tom confidently guarantees impossible growth figures, knowing shareholders will forget these promises by year's end. When both compete for the same promotion, Tom's boldness appears visionary while Jane's honesty seems like a lack of ambition. The ethical person approaches negotiations with limited options. They promise only what they can deliver and speak truthfully about competitors. Their unethical counterpart makes extravagant claims, spreads damaging rumors, and taps into primal fears. This creates what ethicists call a race to the bottom. When unethical tactics succeed, others feel pressure to adopt similar strategies. Standard practices degrade, and principles transform from virtues into vulnerabilities. The cognitive burden compounds this disadvantage. Ethical reasoning demands significantly more mental resources than taking shortcuts. While unethical leaders make quick, expedient decisions, ethical ones carefully weigh principles and consequences. In fast-paced environments, this deliberation often appears as weakness or indecision. History illustrates this pattern clearly. In ancient Rome, Cicero, brilliant, principled, and committed to republican ideals, ultimately lost to Julius Caesar, who readily crossed ethical boundaries when they impeded his path to power. Cicero's principles became his greatest vulnerability in a system where others played by different rules. This dynamic repeats across eras. Modern political candidates who adhere to ethical campaign practices struggle against opponents employing character assassination and deliberate misinformation. Corporate executives who refuse to exaggerate projections get outshined by peers who promise the impossible. Research from the University of British Columbia confirms this troubling reality. Individuals with reduced empathy and moral obligation often advance more rapidly when these traits combine with social charm. This pattern appears globally, from Shenyu, ruthless advancement tactics, in Chinese corporate culture, to supposedly egalitarian Nordic companies. The implications extend beyond individual careers. Systems that reward unethical behavior create environments hostile to principled leadership. Ethical individuals either compromise their values, withdraw from competition, or remain trapped in middle positions, close enough to see corruption but too far from power to change it. This creates a form of natural selection that favors traits harmful to collective good. Organizations elevating the unethical become less trusted and more vulnerable to catastrophic failures of judgment. Short-term advantages of ethical flexibility transform into long-term weaknesses. Capable, ethical individuals face a profound dilemma: compromise values to advance, or maintain principles but remain powerless to effect meaningful change. Neither option satisfies, and the tension between them consumes energy that could otherwise drive innovation. While the ethical person wrestles with impossible choices, there's another force at work within organizational hierarchies that few discuss openly. Look beyond the moral dilemma, and you'll discover something even more insidious. Incompetent leaders deliberately construct protective systems of mediocrity around themselves as a survival strategy. Dr. Tomas Chamorro-Premuzic's research reveals why this happens. Incompetent leaders experience competence threatening. They perceive capable team members as existential threats to their authority and position. This creates a dangerous dynamic where the leader actively selects for loyalty and non-threatening personalities, rather than skill, experience, or intelligence. The result is what Dr. Chamorro-Premuzic describes as a competence drought within the organization, where advancement depends on how effectively you reinforce the leader's sense of superiority. Consider what happens when a genuinely competent person enters this ecosystem. Their ideas challenge the status quo. Their questions expose flaws in the leader's thinking. Their presence creates an uncomfortable contrast that threatens the leader's self-image. The incompetent leader must either acknowledge their inadequacy or neutralize the threat. Almost invariably, they choose the latter. This neutralization follows predictable patterns: exclusion from key meetings, recommendations ignored or credited to others, impossible tasks with inadequate resources. Eventually, competent individuals are labeled as not a team player or not aligned with our values. Subjective criticisms nearly impossible to refute. The organization develops into what researchers call islands of incompetence, protective bubbles where decisions go unchallenged regardless of quality. Like a coral reef of mediocrity, these structures protect the vulnerable leader while slowly suffocating innovation and performance throughout the system. History illustrates this pattern vividly. In Emperor Commodus's court, capable administrators were systematically replaced by flatterers and entertainers. This substitution of competence with loyalty accelerated Rome's decline as governance gave way to spectacle. Similarly, Zimbabwe under Robert Mugabe saw the systematic replacement of qualified administrators with partisan loyalists, transforming a promising economy into an economic disaster zone. These aren't merely leadership failures. They're the predictable result of incompetence building protective barriers against accountability. So how do these networks maintain themselves once established? Through specific psychological tactics that reinforce their position. One primary strategy involves exploiting tribalism. By creating clear in-groups and out-groups, they transform substantive criticism into perceived attacks from enemies. Psychologists call this identity fusion, where challenging the leader feels like betrayal of the group itself. Another tactic involves deliberately generating chaos and crises. This constant stream of distractions serves a strategic purpose. It overwhelms cognitive resources, leaving little mental energy for critical analysis. When people continuously respond to emergencies, they cannot question the deeper patterns creating those emergencies. Perhaps most insidious is what George Orwell termed doublethink, holding contradictory beliefs simultaneously. By shifting positions and rewriting history, incompetent leaders create environments where truth feels subjective and accountability becomes impossible. These tactics create a cascading effect throughout the organization. As competence becomes increasingly scarce at higher levels, it simultaneously becomes devalued at lower levels. Demonstrating competence might mark you as a threat. This leads to the normalization of incompetence throughout the entire system, with catastrophic consequences for organizational performance, innovation, and ultimately, survival. When was the last time you heard a political leader, CEO, or even your direct manager plainly admit, "I don't know"? Those three words have become nearly extinct in leadership discourse. The normalization of incompetence throughout systems reveals a deeper vulnerability in human psychology, something so fundamental that it explains why we often choose the wrong leaders in the first place. This vulnerability is wired into our brains. In times of uncertainty, our minds gravitate toward those who offer absolute certainty. This need for psychological comfort is so powerful that many of us unconsciously prefer confident falsehoods over uncomfortable truths. This isn't about ego, it's about tapping into our most basic psychological needs. We exist in a world of overwhelming complexity, yet our brains evolved in environments where quick, decisive action could mean the difference between survival and death. This evolutionary heritage leaves us with a profound psychological need for certainty, especially when facing unfamiliar challenges. The need for cognitive closure, our desire for definite answers rather than lingering in ambiguity, intensifies during periods of threat or instability. Research shows that when people experience uncertainty or threat, this need increases dramatically. The implications? When feeling threatened, we become more receptive to black and white thinking and more likely to follow leaders who project absolute certainty, regardless of whether that certainty is warranted. During crises, this tendency becomes particularly dangerous. When facing complex problems, climate change, economic inequality, pandemics, our psychological need for closure makes us susceptible to those offering immediate, simplified solutions. The complexity of these issues demands nuanced approaches, yet that very nuance becomes psychologically unsatisfying. We want answers, not qualifications, solutions, not trade-offs, certainty, not probability. Many assume intelligent people make better decisions under pressure. Yet a 2017 Yale experiment revealed the opposite. When subjects faced mathematically complex policy problems, their ability to correctly interpret data was directly influenced by whether the results aligned with their existing beliefs. Most surprisingly, the most mathematically skilled participants showed the strongest bias, using their intelligence to justify their preferred conclusion rather than find the correct answer.